Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to welcome our respected Registrar, Professor Dr. V. Balaji, sir, for this orientation program, for the smooth running of this program. Sir, your encouragement with a smile on your face has always given us the positive energy and helps us to move forward without any hesitation and to make this event a great success. And also, I welcome Dr. Subhashrina, Regional Solution Consultant, and Mr. Amir Hussain from Clarivate Analytics for this program. They are going to deliver a lecture about Web of Science. Welcome, ma'am and sir. And also I welcome Professor Dr. R. Haritha Devi, ma'am, Director in charge, Department of Research, Publications and Academic Affairs, Dr. Kumudaratna, ma'am, Director in charge, PG Studies, and all HODs, faculties for their support by communicating the program information to their respective departments and classes and ensure the students' participations in the program and to get awareness about Web of Science. And also, last but not the least, I would like to welcome all the students to participate in this program. Now I hand over the program to our registrar, Professor Dr. V. Balaji, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, everyone. As madam has pointed out, our Vice Chancellor could not be able to make it to this occasion, but he has once again conveyed his success of the program, and he want to pass on the message that to welcome all who are organized and who are also being invited as a resource person, and all our directors, controller of examination, and all other faculty members and the students. His wishes for participating in this webinar. Now, on behalf of him, I just want to mention few things. Where, of course, the Web of Science, the citation database, what will be happening today? It's the university library, in fact, has organized this program at the need of the hour when we are preparing for the NAAC accreditation, where every activity, function, performance, etc. of the university and its interested parties, such as faculty, staff, students, are measured and evaluated. Now, with higher education becoming an international service, there is growing concern over the world about the quality, standards, and recognition.
Hello.
Consequent upon this trend, the debate on how benchmarks have to be evolved for ascertaining and assuring quality at different levels of higher education, which is significant. Benchmarking is an increasingly popular tool in industry and is used extensively by both manufacturing and service organizations. Now, if you want to know about the benchmarking, it is an ongoing systematic means for measuring and comparing the work process of an organization. Now, generally for benchmarking, the emphasis was primarily on measurement per se and on relatively straightforward comparisons of suitable performances, the parameters within and between companies. Such parameters were usually simple productivity and efficiency measures. Now, in this rapidly changing dynamic world, measurement is performed in day-to-day activities in human life, and it is the key. Standards of quantitative assessment by which the efficiency, performance, progress, or quality, process, or product are framed and can be assessed. In the academic field of ours, the analysts use metric study to compare the research productivity between authors, institutions, countries, despite many variations between the set factors. With a growing number of institutions of higher education, the competition also grows, which result in the need for a metric analysis on institution performance. With respect to higher education institutions, the number of publications from the institution on the whole and publications by the individual are one of the key measuring parameters for research and publications. This necessitates the need for the tool for measuring publication. The following are the very much significance for the study of metrics analysis. That is, peer review was the only tool for measuring journals articles in the earlier stage. Of course, the enormous amount of publication in the digital environment has made metric study more useful. The digital world facilitates to compare the research performance between author, institutions, journals, and countries, and so on. It also helps the author to identify and publish articles in reputed journals, and also helps the libraries to procure journals. It is an accepted one for promotion, grant, and for policy decisions. The digital environment also helps the evolvement of the metric study on publication starting from 1960, where bibliometrics was in the initial stage in 1960, where we all know which is application of mathematics and statistics on publications. The next one in 1970 was scientiometrics, which is quantitative study of science and technology. In 1980, it was converted into informatics, which is application of mathematical and statistical method to study and analyze the characteristics of all kinds of information. And in 1990, the webometrics, which is a quantitative study of information resources on the web, its construction, use, structure, and technology, etc. And the new metric tool now is named as Altmetrics, which measures the research impact on the social media such as Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp, etc. The research publication measuring tools, where we can see number of popular measuring tools for research publication, which are covered in today's orientation programs, which are citation analysis, H-index, journal impact factor. Now, how to utilize these tools for individuals and institutional growth? Through analysis of research results, selection of best journals for publishing, based on research area and research for co-authors, access collaboration based on research area, find suitable funding agency based on research, find best and most suitable journal based on research area for publication. The citation analysis is done using metric tools to measure the quality of the paper and its impact among the research community. The main purpose of the citation analysis is to measure how many times the research article has been cited by other authors. More the number of times the article is cited by various authors, then the article will have more value for its original content and has more impact among the research community. It is a measurement tool to measure the quality of the article. On the other hand, the H-index is a ranking of researchers and is used to measure the research publication of authors. In other words, the H-index is an author level metric that measures both the productivity and citation impact of the publication of the researcher. Higher the H-index, higher the number of articles published by the researcher with higher number of citations in each article. Now, quality articles will have generally higher citations, and hence H-index is a measurement tool to measure the capability of the researchers to publish more quantity of articles with consistent, better quality. Now, similarly, H-index is also used to measure the research capability of a nation at large. Now, journal impact factor is also the ranking of journals. Now, journals ranking is counted based on number of citations received for their published papers in the other journals. In other words, journal impact factor is calculated by counting all the citations received in other journals, which is divided by the number of articles for a particular period. Now, these are all the things what the resource persons could be, will be dealing with. I don't want to go into details of those issues. As far as our requirement is concerned about the NAAC, as per the requirement of NAAC under Research Publication Award section 3.4, the institutional measuring criteria is in subsection 2, which refers to university published journals. The listing of journals in international database is one of the key measuring criteria for the institution. The individual measuring criteria is mentioned under subsection 3, which refers to the details of publication with the faculty. Along with the other publication detail, some of the specific key measuring criteria for individuals are number of articles listed in the international database like Web of Science, Scopus, etc. The citation index in the range and average. SNIP, source normalized impact per person, which is the mean citation average for 3 years. JCR, journal citation report. Article published journal impact factor, its range and average, and H index of the individual. Friends, I hope that this orientation program will go through the light and enlighten and help you to understand the concepts of various measuring criteria, what I was just mentioning for our research publication and the tools available. As per the objectives of the program, it also covers the application and utilization of various tools to deliver high impact quality research article in the high rank journals. In turn, helps to gain higher H index score, which help for the professional growth of the individual. Subsequently, the higher H index score of the individual helps the growth of the organization and also helps the organization to gain a better score. Now, with this, I just want to conclude, but I would just want to thank the organizers, Dr. S.K. Ashok Kumar, and the presenters who are going to be along with us as a resource person is Ms. Shubhashri Nam, Reg Solutions Consultant, Clarivate Analytics, Acropolis, Mr. Amir Hussain, Account Manager, Clarivate Analytics, Acropolis, Chennai, and Dr. A. Bhagavati. Now, once again, on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, I thank one and all for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Enjoy the webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you, sir.
Very good morning to one and all present here. I'm Lalita from School of Excellence in Law, and today I'll be anchoring the session. Due to technical glitches, I couldn't give an introduction to Professor Dr. V. Balaji, such a resourceful, knowledgeable person. And I feel it'll be a sin if I don't introduce him right now. So thank you, sir, for the presidential address. I'll just give a brief introduction about him because it's worth for everybody to know about you, sir. So there goes a saying, greatness of a man is not on how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect people positively. And such a positive pillar and support for School of Excellence in Law is Professor Dr. V. Balaji. Professor Dr. V. Balaji is presently working as the Registrar and Director in charge of UG Studies in Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ambedkar Law University. He has got around 18 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. He has completed his undergraduate in law from the prestigious Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai, and post-graduation from international law and international law and constitutional law from another illustrious institution, the Department of Legal Studies, University of Madras, Chennai. He got his doctorate degree in law and human rights in University of Madras. He has participated in international conferences in countries like UK, USA, Malaysia, etc. He was also nominated as co-investigator in the South Asian project that was funded by the Royal British Government to do research in the Indo-US Civil Nuclear Agreement. He also undertook a month-long training program on the legal training and legal research at the Cardiff University, UK. He also had been awarded the UGC's prestigious research award for teachers to undergo research for 2-year research project. Professor Dr. V. Balaji was nominated as the project director in charge for chair on consumer law and jurisprudence, funded and established by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs by the Government of India in Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ambedkar Law University. Professor Dr. V. Balaji has held several important positions in Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ambedkar Law University, such as the Registrar in Charge, Director in Charge, Syndicate Member, Controller of Examiner, Dean, College Development Council, Director Department Distance Education, NSS, YRC Zonal Coordinator for the University, etc. On the academic side, he has also authored a book on police and human rights. He has published several research articles on various legal journals on subjects such as human rights, international law, constitutional law, child rights, women rights, international environmental law, media law, armed conflict. The list goes on, my dear friends. And I still worry for not giving an introduction at the beginning, and hope you all now understand how resourceful person is the Professor Dr. V. Balaji. Thank you so much for the inaugural and presidential address, sir. And it's my bad for not introducing at the start. I'm very sorry for that. I apologize. Now moving on to the next presenter of the day, there goes a saying, success isn't always about greatness. It is about consistency, and consistent hard work leads to success, and the greatness will just follow. If you want me to show a living example who is both successful as well as consistently hard work, I would say it is Dr. Subhashri Nag. Dr. Subhashri Nag is a regional solution consultant for the Life Science and Scholarly Research Division at the Clarivate Analytics. She completed her PhD from the Texas Tech University Health Science Center, USA, and her postdoctoral training from Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. A pharmacologist and toxicologist by training, she has more than 8 years of experiences in the anti-cancer drug discovery and pharmacokinetics area with 25 peer review publication and more than 1100 citations. At Clarivate Analytics, she has involved in user engagement, conducting author workshop, creating strategy for research capacity holding. Her other interest includes community outreach in scientific education, scientific writing, and bibliometric evaluation. Today, I take great privilege in welcoming ma'am to address all of us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lalita, for this wonderful and very warm introduction. I hope I'm audible to everybody. Can I please
Yes,
get a
ma'am.
confirmation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
You're audible,
okay,
ma'am.
perfect. So, first of all, I must thank Dr. Balaji for that wonderful and very insightful introduction. He covered a lot of the, avenues and ground that we are going to speak about in detail in our presentation. Before we actually go on to understanding what our product Web of Science can do, let me take you a little bit through what exactly is Clarivate. Now, Clarivate Analytics had its genesis in the 1950s in the work of Dr. Eugene Garfield. Dr. Eugene Garfield has been called as the father of scientometrics. Now, scientometrics or bibliometrics is the application of mathematical and statistical principles to research publications to understand as a whole in a certain area what are the number, what is the quality of research publications, and these are tools that are used by information scientists and quality control departments and universities across the world to get a better understanding of where they stand in the research, in the very competitive academic research space. And today, Clarivate has an entire suite of products ranging from the citation database Web of Science to the reference management tool EndNote to Publons, which allows you to create your profiles of a researcher and actually increases their online visibility and presence. So we cover all the aspects and steps of the research life cycle and scholarly sciences. And our products are in use by government agencies and institutions across the world. More than 9,000 institutions across the world, subscribe to products like Clarivate. So and Web of Science actually was founded as a product back in the 1950s, and it is there today, in this mammoth form that we see. So that was a small introduction about Clarivate. We are a multinational corporation. We are headquartered in Philadelphia, United States, but we have offices and we work with the research ecosystem in more than 100 countries. So before I go into detail about what a citation database is, let me have a show of how the people can please unmute yourselves. I'm sure any researcher, I do not come from a legal background myself, but I know that in law, especially, research is extremely important, especially when you're looking for case law, you're looking for understanding how a certain, statute has been interpreted before, and their own. So it is very important that you have, access, you keep on reading legal journals, legal material. Now we'll go back through one or every concept that Dr. Okay, so I have just been given a mandate to, okay. Okay, so now let's see about how do we read a paper that's useful to us. So how many of us would agree with this, that when you see a paper in a journal or anywhere and you think it is important, the first thing you do is go to the footnotes or the references at the back of that particular publication, right? So for example, in this paper, I would actually go to the references at the back. And if I see some interesting references, I make a note of them and I decide to find. So this is the way I find relevant papers, right? This is an approach that many of us have taken, especially when we visit physical libraries. But in using this approach, what can we do? We can only find older papers, right? Now, remember what exactly is a citation. Let me just stop annotating. So let us first understand what exactly is a citation. Now, when you are formally acknowledging a particular, statement that is based on previously done research, that is based on previously done research, that is the time we call that as a citation. It is a formal acknowledgement by your peers, by your research community, of the value of the work that you have, in the form of your manuscript. Now, why are citations so important? Now, citations are probably one of the more unbiased and quantitative metric by which I can understand what is the impact of my paper. How do you know when you're reading? Today, if you go and you check the internet, there is a plethora of literature. The amount of literature which is out there is mind-boggling. It has been estimated that every year, people publish more than 2 million articles. So how do you know? How do you, try to weed the chaff out of the really important papers? Understand which are the ones which are really impactful, papers which are of the highest quality. So there is what a citation is very, very helpful. A citation is a reference to other published materials. And what a citation index does is that it tries to capture the references of all the items. So on Web of Science, if I had this paper, I would get not only the citations or the references that this paper has cited, I would also get which are the papers, which are citing this particular paper. So I am going backward in time for the references quoted by this paper, and I'm going forward in time to look at the citations for this paper. Is this part understood? Has everybody grasped the concept of what exactly is a citation and how it is important? Any questions at this point? Let us make this a very interactive session. Any
Ma'am,
questions?
Yes. End of the session, we will have a discussion.
Okay. So we talked about, and I will be talking about H-index, etc. But first, let us look at why would a college. Now, many people have this set notion that Web of Science, just because of the name itself, it seems it is more suited for researchers who are working in the hard sciences, which is not exactly true. We have the journals from all across the field. In fact, we have journals we have more than 300 legal journals on Web of Science, law journals. We have different categories. So if you are looking into law and you're looking into medical ethics, let's say, you would find that on Web of Science. All our research records on Web of Science, though the name is Web of Science, it's a multidisciplinary database. There is content from the arts and sciences, there is content from the social sciences, and of course from the hard sciences, and it is spread across 254 subject categories. So 254 subject categories. And this is where you see arts and humanities citation index. We have books and we have social sciences. 10 million data sets and data studies. Now for Dr. Bala, yes, ma'am. Dr. Balaji made a very pertinent comment. He talked about the quality of, research that was, available, which made a big difference, especially when you're looking at NAC, accreditation, etc. So this is where I think Web of Science comes into play. Now, at present, I'm sure when you are looking for any kind of when you're doing legal research, and you're not only looking at case law or statutes, you're looking also as what is the literature in my field. Okay, has somebody written a perspective on this particular interpretation of case law? I want to look at what is the literature, the peer reviewed literature. Now, I hope all of us understand what is peer reviewed. Scientific or academic, the right word I would say in this perspective would be academic literature. When we are talking about academic literature, it needs to be peer reviewed. Okay, what I mean by peer reviewed is that this literature, that a particular manuscript before getting published in a journal must have been validated. It must have been looked at, it must have been checked for quality, for the content by experts in the field. So in this case, for you all, it would be other legal researchers, other lawyers, who are also publishing. Now, here comes the catch. There are several low quality journals that have mushroomed up, and which if you're doing a simple internet search, you'll be quickly able to see those journals because they are all freely available they are there on the internet. And as a researcher, it is very difficult for you to understand, is this really something that is relevant for my topic? Is this what said, the perspective that they have put, has that been accepted, or it has been other legal luminaries are of the same opinion? How do you know that? Because if you are there on the internet, you are not able to see the number of citations. You do not know from where the citations have appeared. So there comes Web of Science. On Web of Science, if there is a journal which is indexed on this platform, it undergoes a very, very thorough quality control check. And on Web of Science, when we talk, just look at the breadth. We have 176 million plus records from different subject areas, and these 176 million records actually have 3 billion plus citations. We have funding data. So, I'm sure Dr. Balaji would be very happy to see and try to understand that where are other institutions, which are the funding opportunities that they are applying for. Because sometimes when you're writing, let's say, a grant, you are trying to write a small proposal, and you're confused, where do I send my grant proposal to which section, to which foundation? If you do a retrospective study of what other people have already published before and what are the granting agencies that they were able to attract, that would be a very good understanding of the field, and you would understand which funding agencies you can prospectively apply to. So the amount of literature covered on Web of Science is very huge, but the main point here is just not the quantity. We are exhaustive in our coverage, no doubt, but we also take a lot of pride in ensuring that the literature that you're referring to on Web of Science comes from quality sources. Moving on. So how does your Web of Science empower a researcher community? It allows you to understand the impactful research, what is the trend in that particular research, basically conduct a literature review, effective, efficient, quality literature review. It allows you to perform a research performance evaluation. This, I think, is very, very important in terms of, this is very important, especially in terms of what we called about the NAC, about the NAC, performance evaluation, etc. When we are talking about, just give me a second. I think my cursor went haywire. Okay. Performing a research evaluation is very important. So all over India now today, what is happening is there is a shift towards accountability in colleges and universities in terms of what is your output, what is your research output. Now research output is being measured in terms of the number of publications. Now, earlier in 2010, when UGC, the governing body, they introduced a set of recommendations, and they made it necessary and mandatory for all researchers who are PhD researchers, or even professors and teaching faculty, that they must have publication or get a promotion, to complete a degree, to acquire tenure, etc. Now, what they did not clarify was, what about the quality of the publication? Where should you be publishing? And that is the point at which all these low quality, so-called predatory journals started. So this is the concept, predatory journals. Now, what are predatory journals? These are journals which are basically do a poor job of peer review. That is as simple as that. So especially if any one of you as a researcher or as faculty have ever got a message from somebody to publish in a journal that guarantees you acceptance, that guarantees you publication, I can absolutely tell you that is going to be a predatory journal. Because no outlet for publication, no journal can guarantee you that your manuscript will pass through peer review, right? You never know. Your manuscript may be subjected to multiple rounds of revision. It may be outright rejected, because your the people who are publishing, they might the reviewers might think that this is work which is not novel. This is work which is very similar work has been published before, or the manuscript is not of enough scientific rigor. scientific or academic rigor. It is not well researched. So there are so many reasons why a manuscript can get rejected. And that all depends upon the editor and the peer reviewer. So a journal or a publisher cannot per se make this promise that I will guaranteed publication, or within 7 to 10 days your manuscript will be published. That's too less a time. So I'm sure a lot of the senior faculty here who have been very active in publishing, or who are themselves editorial board members and peer reviewers, they can attest that if you're an editor, selecting the right reviewer, because the reviewer has to be from the same has to be an expert in the same topic as that of the what is being published. So for example, if today in a legal journal there is a publication on constitutional law, okay, the Indian constitutional law and a certain part of it, okay, now let's say free speech and what is guaranteed in the constitution. Can any lawyer, any legal researcher be able to serve as a reviewer or be able to give an opinion on a manuscript that deals on free speech as enshrined in the Indian constitution? No, because it has to be a very specific type of lawyer. As I understand, there are lawyers called as constitutional lawyers. Their basic job is to interpret the constitution, interpret it in terms of how it has been written, interpret in terms of how several judgments over the years have been passed to interpret the constitution, right? So not everybody is an expert in all fields. It is very important that a journal match the reviewer to the content of the manuscript, and it takes time. So anytime you see a journal that promises you to give you a quick publication, you should be very, very suspicious. Okay, and one way to get not get into all these problematic areas or not fall prey to predatory journals is, let me just stop this, is look at the Web of Science platform. So the Web of Science platform, I'm starting annotation again. You can just go to master journal list. So all of you, I just recommend all of you who are on your laptops, right now on your systems, just click on master journal list Clarivate on Google and create an account. Now, Master Journal List Clarivate is a list of all these 34,000 journals which are there on the Web of Science platform. And you do not even need to put the name of the journal. You can go and click on the subject area. So for you all, it will be legal. You can put in ethics, etc. And you will be able to see the journals that are present on Web of Science. As I mentioned before, we are publisher neutral and we follow an extremely strict curation process. So what it ensures is the strict curation process that none of these so-called predatory journals will ever make their ways into Web of Science. And this is one of the reasons why. And now coming to Dr. Balaji's concern, when you're looking for regulatory agency rankings, etc., they are looking at not how many publications your institution has. They're looking at publications which are from globally accepted citation databases like Web of Science. So as an institution, somebody can have, some institution can have, say, we have published 300 papers this year. But how many of them, when NAC or NIRF, National Institute of Ranking Framework, they evaluate an institution's research productivity, they are going to be looking at the number of papers on Web of Science, not the number of papers anywhere on the internet. I seem to have lost my sharing rights.
Yes, ma'am.
Give me a second to share back. I think my screen is being shared, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Another thing very important is the publisher neutral part. Please remember, we are not a publisher. We do not have any journals. We don't publish any journal. In fact, our editors who make the selection of whether a journal can be a part of Web of Science or not, they themselves are researchers. They have advanced degrees, they have been researchers themselves, but they are not publishing actively. They are not part of any journal. So there is no conflict of interest. There's no conflict of interest as to whether a particular, I mean, we are not gaining anything or we are not losing anything if a particular journal is indexed on Web of Science. As long as it meets all the criteria, the selection criteria that we have very well defined, a journal can make the cut and be on Web of Science. We have already talked about performing research performance evaluation. We'll talk about identifying potential collaborators and journals. And we also have, this is going to be very pleasant news for a lot of faculty, almost 20 to 30% of our content is full text because we have proprietary algorithms that identify, full text papers if they are available anywhere on the internet. So maybe as part of a university server, as a public repository, etc. Once you are you have Web of Science, you also have access to EndNote, which is basically a reference management tool. Now, I have had the pleasure of working with one of the law institutes in Delhi, Indian Law Institute in Delhi. And what I understood is that legal referencing is a very, very complex matter. How many of you agree? Much more complex than where I come from, the hard sciences. You have so many different, types of, material and everything, and you have footnotes and then, case laws and all that need to be differently cited. And many times what I understand is you do all of this manually, right? Anybody? Can I have a show of hands? How many of you do your referencing manually? Okay. So we have a lot of people who are saying yes, that they do their referencing manually. If you are subscribed to EndNote desktop version, you can actually create your style once, and then there is no need to do it manually. Automatically, all the formatting will be done for you. You can create your own reference library. You can designate that library what type of article it is it a statute, is it a court proceeding, is it a conference, is it a journal article, and accordingly in your final manuscript the reference style will change. So that's a great tool. That's a very, very great tool, especially for legal researchers, I feel. So with this short introduction, I am going to transition into the actual database. And over there, we will be talking about the citation metrics. We'll be talking about self-citations, H-index, all the different things. Okay, just give me 1 second to share my screen. Can everybody see my Web of Science screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So one thing, can you see the time span? We have literature going back up till 1900. Now I will just take away the science citation index for now because this is more towards hard sciences. We're talking about more about, and then we'll keep all of this. Okay, so is there any keyword that we can search on? Or we can even have a look at how many, legal journals with an impact factor. So I'll just introduce the journal impact factor right now. So just give me a second. I think you can see this screen called Journal Citation Reports. Can you see? These are all the things from the social sciences index. Now, journal impact factor, Dr. Balaji has already shared its meaning. Now, as I talked about, how do I know an article is very impactful or not based on the number of people can put their answers in the chat. How do I know that an article is impactful based on the number of what? Anybody in the chat? You just, okay, citations, good. So I'm sure all of you will agree if an article is more this number of citations an article gets, obviously more impactful it is. So the same thing applies for a journal as a whole, right? So accordingly, Web of Science Clarivate, we have come up with an indicator called the journal impact factor, wherein, and I think I'll start my annotation here. Give me 1 second. Chat window, annotate. So what is the journal impact factor? JIF is number of citations for articles published in past 2 years in the present year. This is very important. In the present year for articles published in the last 2 years. So that means if I am, and then I divide this entire thing. Excuse me, number of articles. Okay. So basically, let's say I have a journal, the Harvard Law Review. Let's say my journal is Harvard Law Review. And I know that Harvard Law Review published in the year 2017 and 2020. So Harvard Law Review is my journal. In 2018, it had published 75 articles. Okay. And just a minute. Annotation never works that great. And in 2017, it had published 25. Sorry, I'll just take the annotation over again and I'll do it again. So example is now we are taking is Harvard Law Review, HLR. Okay. So in 2017, it had 75 articles. In 2018, it had 25 articles and citations in the current year. So please remember the current year, in every year, the JCR or the Journal Citation Reports releases the impact factor in June for the past year. For example, in 21 June, when it releases, I have still not garnered all the citations for 2021. So what I'm going to be doing is doing JCR for the year 2020 all the citations in the year 2020. So this right now for 2019, so I will see citations, these 100 articles got, these 100 articles got in 2019 was, let's say, 400. So now can somebody tell me what will be the journal impact factor? The journal impact factor is 400 divided by 75 plus 25, that is 4. 400 divided by 100 equals to 4. So again, for a particular year, in this case, it is 2019, I need to see how many citations were garnered in 2019. But for which articles? Those articles published in the last 2 years. So for 2019, I will calculate articles published in 2017 and 2018. Okay, so this is the way journal citation reports calculates the impact factor. Now, obviously, more the number of citations, better will your this ratio be. So, obviously, journal impact factor is tied to citations. Now, there is a subtle, nuance over here. I'm sure now, if you, I think right in over here, you can notice. Look at economics and look at biochemistry. Can you see the median impact factor in both the cases is so different? This is just 1.4, this is 3.16, almost 3 times higher, right? So that means biochemistry and molecular biology journals have on an average got way more citations than economics. Now that is there is a reason for that, especially in the hard sciences, interdisciplinary sciences like biochemistry, etc. The number of citations got is typically very high. Therefore, journals in that category, they have a higher impact factor associated with them, many of them. So that's why the median impact factor means what? That 50% of the journals appearing in the biochemistry area, that is 297 out of 297 journals, more than 145 journals have an impact factor more than 3.167. Whereas for economics, only 50% of the journals have an impact factor more than 1.4. So always looking at this arithmetic number to understand how quality is not enough. Because if I look at the area of law, is 4 an impact factor a desirable impact factor to choose a journal for publishing or not? That I cannot determine so easily. I have to look at which quartile. So quartile means in a particular subject area, I will order the journals according to their impact factor, and those journals which are in the top 25% of that particular subject area, when ordered by impact factor, they are known as Q1, quartile 1 journals. And across the world, most institutions which are research specific, their intent always has been to publish in Q1 journals. So when Dr. Balaji talked about benchmarking, etc., that's one of the areas, aspirational areas most institutes work, and we would like to publish in Q1 journals rather than just saying I want to publish in journals with an impact factor more than XYZ. Okay, so I'll stop annotating. Let's look at legal. So we have law, submit. So we have 155 journals on Web of Science which have an impact factor. Please remember there are several other journals on law on Web of Science which do not have an impact factor, because these are journals which are newer, because in order to get an impact factor, you have to have a provenance. You have to be there for a certain amount of time. So we can just have a look at which are the most. So Harvard Law Review with a journal impact factor of 7.136 is a top journal to be indexed in the area of law. You have Yale, you have European Journal, University of Pennsylvania, Common Market Law, Stanford Law Review, University Columbia, Texas, We have feminist legal studies. Okay. So now going back to Web of Science, can we get some topics to do some searches on and try to see what we can find? Maybe I'll take up free speech and try to see. Let's see how many articles are there. Oh, quite a bit actually on free speech. See how quickly I can filter. I have law because free speech as a topic, as a keyword is there in so many, different, I can quickly filter only. I want to see only the legal. Let's see how many of them, if any, are from India. I can quickly do a country and regions. So going to more options. We have 3 papers only. That's really low. Okay. So we have this paper published in 2016 about blasphemy and free speech. Quite interesting. And the best part is, so we also have other keywords, freedom of speech. So 1900 results. Quickly go to analyze results. And then look for countries. I want to again look for countries which are there. I again want to look for only papers from India. Let's do a control F of India. 20 papers. View selected. Can you see I can go quickly to my search history? No problem at all. I can combine multiple things. So I've got 23 papers, just like that in 5 minutes. Oh, did I do more? 20. This is a free versus hate speech on social media, the conservative constitution free of speech debates. And not only this, can you see over here? Web of Science actually gives you ideas to how to, check the records which people have looked at while looking at similar papers. So that also helps you gain the kind of papers that you need. And you can always view related records. That also gives you many more ideas about hate speech, etc. And you're looking not only now at India, you're looking across the world. So it's very easy to do searches on Web of Science. You can also go and look at the institution's profile. So topic, I will, for it, I guess for academic purpose, I am taking the name of Anna University to see. So you can see over here, Anna University. I'm trying to just have a look at how many publications does Anna University have on Web of Science. You can create a citation report quickly. You can see how many average citations an university organization has, how many times they have been cited, by whom. All of this can actually help your institution very quickly understand that, okay, which areas are we strong in. So as Dr. Balaji said, when you want to do benchmarking, when you want to compare against your peers, understand what your peers are doing and what am I doing, what is different. You can use this. Where are your public citations coming from? Which are the organizations that are citing you, etc. Okay, So these are some of the things, these are all very, very, how do I put it? I've talked about all of them on a very high level, but I think all of the topics that I've discussed till date should allow you to have a better understanding of how Web of Science can help you do a literature review. A Web of Science can help you, understand your strengths and weaknesses as an organization, as an author, a researcher. I also urge all of you to create Publons accounts. Okay, so I'm just putting the thing on the chat. So just give me a second. So for all of you who are interested in creating a Publons researcher ID and uploading your papers, you can do this. So all of you, I request you all to create an ORCID ID. I put the very detailed explanation in the chat. This is a step-by-step information for all the faculty and researchers to create online profiles on Publons for yourselves and upload your publications. Please remember, on Publons, not all your publications that you upload need to be from Web of Science. You can even import as a BibTeX file from any journal website. You can have a CSV file, and you can create your own researcher profile over there. Please refer to the master journal list. I have already talked about that before. I am again the email, sorry, the link, the URL, master journal list. This is the URL. Please use this. This will be very helpful. So if I have to do a search journals, okay, all you need to just do a create a free account, and you can even go over here to see the category. So let's say law. Okay. And let's see. All your journals are coming. And you see over here all the different journals. Now, if something is there on emerging sources citation, and as I said, that will not have an impact factor, but it's still giving you all the information of the journals which are there on Web of Science. This should be very helpful for you all to decide where I should be publishing. Again, another request, please refer to the master journal list before making decisions to publish. This will be very helpful in the long run for your institutional rankings and reputation. With this, I will stop my presentation, but I'll open up the forum for discussion and question and answers.
Participants are welcome to raise their questions and clarify their doubts with the resource person.
Madam, before that, I just want to have few words.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in fact, madam, nothing. I just don't want to ask any questions, but I was really, in fact, I can appreciate Shubhashree Nag for giving us a very wonderful presentation. I think you have brought out us from a place where we thought that what we are doing at present, but to show us the way that how to do things and how to do it in a professional way, and also for us to think twice before publication and to see that what to publish and how to publish and where to publish. In fact, I just once again thank Shubhashree Nag for giving us elaborate view and enlightening us. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you so much for your kind words, sir. Really means a lot.
Yeah, participants are requested to raise your questions and clarify your doubts with the resource person. Those who are having any doubts, you can clarify with the resource person through chat. Anybody else? Any doubts you can ask regarding this Web of Science. This is a great opportunity to clarify your doubts. Participants? Ma'am, they are asking about H-index. What is H-index? What is the use of H-index? How to find H-index?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So H-index is basically so it was introduced in 2005 by a Stanford physics professor called Dr. Emil Hirsch. And basically, if you noticed, even Anna University's profile, there were so many citations, right? 10,000 odd citations. Now, do you think all the 1800 papers from Anna University, or in this case, it could be even a particular author, all of them will be cited in the same way? No, right? Maybe there are 5 or 10 papers that have accrued a lot of citations, and these are driving the impact. Okay, so then it was decided that we should have an indicator that is more representative, which is not a basic taking the average. Okay, if you take the average, you are either over representing something in the sample population or under representing, right? So it basically H-index, what it does, which is a pattern. So what you do is to calculate the H-index for a set of publications, you arrange the citations from most to least cited on a graph, and H-index is that point where this number of citations equals to number of papers. So if you're saying my H-index is 20, that means you have authored 20 papers that have been cited at least 20 times. Now, one thing you must remember, while using the H-index, please make sure you're comparing similar researchers. You cannot compare a law researcher with a biochemistry researcher because citations in biochemistry, as we saw, is much higher than in law, right? It's a more interdisciplinary field. So obviously a person in biochemistry will have more number of absolute citations, okay? Another thing that you need to do is remember the time. Now, let's say there's a young researcher. I'm just taking Lalita's example. She's a young researcher. She has published 5 papers. Each of these papers have performed very well. And as a result, she has a total public, citation of 200, right? 5 papers, but 200 citations. But can her H-index be ever more than 5? No, because H-index is what? Number of papers which have at least that many citations. So because her total number of papers is 5, her H-index can never be higher than 5, right? But if there is another researcher who's more senior, who has published more number of papers, though the total cumulative number of citations for that researcher is lower than that of Lalita, that person's H-index can be higher. So what we learn from this is that it is a time-dependent measure. It is proportional to the length of a researcher's career and how many articles he or she has published. So early career researchers are always at a disadvantage when compared to more senior researchers because the latter would have had more time to produce more work and receive more citations to their output. So I hope H-index is clear. So when I say H-index of 20, it means 20 papers at least cited 20 times each.
One more.
Yes. And there is one thing, standard format for citations. So that differs. It depends on your journal that you are submitting your paper. Typically, I think for you all, APA, I think in the humanities and legal APA, many people are extremely, they are, the APA is a very well-known citation. There's APA, there's Chicago footnote, but again, it all depends on the journal. You go to the scope of the journal, author guideline to the author, it will be written which citation style you must follow. So there is no standard format per se, I would say.
Madam, I
Yes,
think,
ma'am. Yes, sir.
more number of law journals require the blue book
Mhm.
citations, the blue book citation, madam, giving from different years, 18th or 19th, the blue book is standard, the format,
Uh-huh.
the citation, what the legal journals would be asking for.
Okay.
I'm just supplementing your thing for that
Okay.
the question. Thank you.
And sir, if I was just checking the blue book citations, yes. So you can actually create that. So the blue book citation is there on EndNote, by the way. So you don't have to do it blue book citation
Yes,
format.
that's what I'm just complimenting your. I'm adding
Yeah.
that the person who asked that what could be the citation, it depends on the journal which is asking for, and normally the large journals will opt for this blue book, madam. That is the versions are there. They
Yeah.
will ask for
So
the version, and depending upon that, they have to.
yes, and if any of your researchers actually have, EndNote installed that software, I have just put a note here where you can download that style. So, sir, if you have that style downloaded, automatically your manuscript will be formatted according to the Blue Book citation. So, just put the link down there in the chat. Any more questions?
They are asking for what is the difference between H index and G index.
This is sir. There are right now several different indexes which are available. So basically, G index is more like, instead of H, they are taking the top articles that receive G square citations. So H index is what 2020. They will now see how many articles you have that have, instead of H is what counting. It's counting what? H is counting 20 articles which have at least 20 citations. G index is based on distribution of citations where the top G articles have received at least G square citations. Okay, so in this case, I will calculate how many articles I have. If I have a G index of 20, if I have a G index of 40, that means these are that many articles that have received 40 into 40, 1600 citations each. So if I have a G index of 5, that means I have 5 articles that have received 25 citations each. Okay, so I just made it in square. H index is more popular, I would say, than G index. That's what we see.
Yeah, yes.
But there are many more, like there's I-10 index that Google Scholar gives.
Yeah,
That is basically a very simple one. How many of your papers have more than 10 citations? So there are several different metrics that are coming up. But H index is pretty standard, more standard.
Hello. Will you please
Hello.
explain about JCR, ma'am? JCR, what is the use of
Yeah,
JCR?
yeah.
What is the purpose and other?
Journal citation reports basically has information about the journal in terms of which are its most cited articles, where are the publications coming from, what is the impact factor associated with that journal. So it is basically an entire journal intelligence platform. It gives you all the information about a particular journal. And JCR can be very helpful for researchers to decide where should they be sending their publications to.
One more question, ma'am. Is
Yes.
EndNote or similar to Mendeley?
I would not say absolutely similar. Our
Yeah.
coverage of Mendeley has a very poor coverage of legal, arts and humanities, and social sciences styles. So Mendeley is more suited as a reference management tool for subject or disciplines related to health sciences, etc. For the area of your, arts and humanities and social sciences, I would say EndNote has way more, journal styles incorporated for citations, bibliography creation methodology. But they both are reference management tools.
And one more question, ma'am. Whether who can use this Web of Science? Can the services be availed for free? One clarification.
Unfortunately, it's a subscription-based service. We do not provide subscriptions on an individual level. They are always provided to an institution. Okay, so if then an institution is interested in and sees utility in Web of Science, I think this would be an amazing platform for you all to quickly look at what is the literature in your field, especially when you're trying to submit something for you're trying to work on a manuscript, on a project, etc.
Participants, any more queries? Any more doubts to clarify with the resource person? I think. One clarification, one query is here. Peer-reviewed journals. Is there any quality assessment regarding peer-reviewed journals?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So quality assessment in the same in the way is that impact factor itself is a marker of quality, sir. The idea is that if a journal is well regarded within the community, articles from that journal will have more citations. So in a particular subject area, so let's take law. If I am trying to look at in the area of law, and I see journals having a better impact factor, one journal having a better impact factor than the other, then obviously the one with a higher impact factor is of a better quality, it's more well regarded, I can say. Quality assessment in the sense, I would say that if you're confused about looking at a journal, please go to the COPE. Let me just share with you.
Yeah.
Let me just check on the internet. We have a COPE is the Committee on Publication Ethics, okay, and they have a member of they have a list of the publishers who are members of COPE. That means they are bound to publish journals based on the ethics agreed upon. I think it might be a good idea for a lot of you to even have a look whether a particular journal is actually belongs to a publisher that is a part of the COPE guidelines, and they are a signatory to the COPE. So they are making a commitment that I will follow editorial integrity, I'll follow peer review. So that is one way of checking the quality of a peer review journal. Any more questions?
Which law journal is supposed to be good for beginners to publish their articles? Will you be able to share the list of law journals?
We can share the list of law journals. That's not a problem. But I would refrain from making such a statement. One, I don't personally come from a law background, so I have little, knowledge. Because see, remember one thing, and I think Dr. Balaji will agree with me. Never ever take any kind of metric in isolation. You should always see your community, your peer community, in terms of your mentors or in fellow faculty and researchers. You all have a good idea of what are the well-known journals in your field. Use that information along with Web of Science citation metrics to come to the II, but do not use each of them. Qualitative metrics used without any kind of quantitative evidence gives result to results in a bias. At the same time, citation metrics or any quantitative metrics used without any qualitative context does not give you the right picture. So I would suggest, look at the Web of Science data and see how many of these journals you have heard your community discuss, which is popular among your, researcher community, which has been recommended by your peers, your mentors, other fellow faculty and researchers, and then make the decision.
One more query, ma'am. They want to know how to find predatory journals.
How to find predatory journals, I would say, is, as I said, any journal that says guaranteed publication is a predatory journal. Any journal that is has a very broad scope. Now, if I tell I am a journal that publishes articles on biochemistry also, I publish articles on law also, and I publish articles on archaeology also, who is going to be my, reader database? Why would, because every field has certain journals, right? Very rarely do very disparate field researchers refer to the same, publications. So very broad scope, vague scope, of accepting articles. Journals whose editorial boards, composition is not transparent. That means, for example, if I just give the name. So, for example, if I just put Dr. Balaji's name without any information about Dr. Balaji's affiliation, how will I be able to verify from which university or what his credentials are? And that is where a lot of these, predatory journals go. They will have a long list of people, but without any kind of verifiable credentials. So look at these red flags to identify, predatory journals. I will refrain from answering the question about peer-reviewed and UGC. Remember, all the UGC CARE listed journals are peer-reviewed. Scopus is another citation database, and they have a different, policy of indexing and editorial policies. Another question that has come up is Web of Science indexes free published journal like Google Scholar. Please remember, Google Scholar is not an indexing service, it's just an aggregator. And Web of Science does index free journals. All you need to do is go to Master Journal List and click on the Open Access tab. Some journals are charging fees for publishing the articles. So basically, you mean to say these are the open access journals. So journals have two models, right? One is when the institution or the end user needs to pay for the journals, or otherwise the author has. See, the journal is being published by a publishing house. These are for-profit organizations. I mean, they have to run. They have to pay fees. They have to bear fees of publishing. They have editors, proofreaders, etc. So they have to make money. That is the bottom line. But where do they make the money from? One, they can either make the money by selling it as a subscription to the end user, that is an institution or a researcher, or they tell that the author has to pay a fee, and then they make it free to the end user. So those which are free to the end user and have a pay to publish model, they are typically known as gold open access. On Web of Science, you have filters that can help you identify which are open access journals. So that will tell you these are the journals that charge a fee.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Lalita?
Oh, thank you, ma'am. It was really thought-provoking. You just gave us an introduction of how citation database works, and also took through the actual website of Web of Science and let us know how it works. I really can't wait to explore more about it, ma'am. Thank you so much, and thank you for answering all the queries so patiently, ma'am. Now, we'll move on with the sessions further. I take great honor in introducing the second speaker of the day, Mr. S. Amar Hussain. There goes the wise saying, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great, and you can be that great generation. Let your greatness blossom. Today we have Mr. S. Amar Hussain, who is going to let his greatness blossom to all of us and ensure we all become great as well. A short, brief introduction about him. Mr. S. Amar Hussain is an account manager for the government, academics, and corporate division at Clarivate Analytics. He has an MBA from Anna University, and he has been with the company for around 4 years. At Clarivate, he handles customer relationship and also sales for South India and Sri Lanka. I take immense pride and pleasure in welcoming you, sir, to address the gathering. Thank you. Welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
No. No, come to the next slide. He's unable to.
Hello, all. Good morning. Sorry.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I got another call on my mobile, so I was there. So yeah, just give me 1 second. So yeah, I believe the session went very well, and like to thank Dr. Subhashree Nag for joining us on a weekend to deliver this session, and thank you, Bhagwati ma'am, for organizing it at your end, and of course Balaji sir for a very good introduction. Actually set the stage for today's session, sir. I'm looking forward to meet you all in person, probably post-COVID, as I'm based in Chennai. I'm really looking forward to meet you all. And thank you all the participants for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Lalita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Carry on, ma'am.
Also, I'll just give a brief introduction about you, but unfortunately, I think there were some technical glitches. So I'll just repeat that again for you, sir. So as the participants are aware of Mr. S. Amar Hussein's introduction, brief introduction, I'll just repeat it shortly again. So Mr. S. Amar Hussain.
Sorry. That was over, ma'am. That was over. Come to the
Okay,
next
ma'am.
part.
Okay, ma'am. All right, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So now let's move on to the next speaker to give a brief introduction about the next speaker. So it's someone whom we all know, and someone who's really kind enough, someone who's hardworking, optimistic, self-reliant person. And if you're guessing it's Bhagwati ma'am, the one who's organizing this, you're absolutely right. So I take this privilege of introducing Bhagwati ma'am. Dr. A. Bhagwati has completed her PhD in Library and Information Science from University of Madras in the year 1999. She is having an experience of more than 15 years in library profession. She has worked as a part-time faculty for regular MSc and distance education in the Department of Library and Information Science, University of Madras. Currently, she's working as a university assistant librarian in Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai from the year 2010. During her career, she has published herself more than 80 articles in journals, both nationals as well as international conferences, and presented research paper. She got the Best Article Award in the National Law University, Delhi during a conference that was held there. And she has published a book and a course material on PGDLL. She has served as an external examiner in PhD and MPhil Viva Voice in various prestigious universities across Tamil Nadu. She has delivered more than 25 special lectures in various prestigious universities and is also an article reviewer in an international journal. She has conducted many workshops and seminars as well, and this is one that's going to get into the list. I welcome you, ma'am, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for your elaborate introduction about me. Good morning, everybody. Once again, I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar Sir, for giving us this opportunity and his great support to organize this program. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Sir couldn't join this program. But with his blessings, encouragement, and motivation, this program has been organized and conducted successfully. Thank you, sir. And I extend my sincere thanks to our respected registrar, Professor Dr. V. Balaji, sir, for ensuring the smooth running of this program. Sir, your encouragement with a smile on your face has always given us the positive energy and helps us to move forward without any hesitation and to make this event a great success. Thank you, sir. And comes to Dr. Subhasrina. She is a regional solution consultant from Clarivate Analytics and has presented very well about Web of Science. She explained elaborately about impact factor, how to take reports by Web of Science, and clarified all doubts very clearly without any hesitation and very patiently about Web of Science. Thank you, ma'am. Due to his situation, Dr. S.K. Ashok Kumar sir was unable to participate in this program, but I am very happy to thank Dr. S.K. Ashok Kumar sir, director of this program, for providing his support and friendly advices whenever we needed. Thank you, sir. And I extended my thanks to Professor Dr. R. Haritha Devi ma'am, Director in charge, Department of Research, Publications and Academic Affairs, Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am, Director in charge, PG Studies, Professor Dr. R. Revati ma'am, NAC Coordinator, and all HODs, faculties for their support by communicating the program information to their respective departments and classes and ensure the students' participation in the program and to get awareness about the Web of Science. And also, I thank Mr. Darwin, Technical Assistant, for providing his technical support. And it gives me an immense happiness to extend a vote of thanks to all those who have contributed in one way or other way to make program a great success. And the last but not the least, I thank the participants for their cooperation and made a program live through their interaction and made the event a great success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you all the speakers as well as the participants for making this day great. I thoroughly enjoyed this program. I'm assuming all of you did it as well. So let's call it a wrap then.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you, Balaji sir.